Hello, and welcome to Seikahan. Today, Japan's game market is growing, so why are its game companies going bankrupt at a record pace? On July 31st, 2026, the Japanese mobile game Bungo Stray Dogs, Tales of the Lost, ended service. It had run for roughly 8 years and 8 months, and the shutdown notice came just one day before on July 30th. Players were told their unused paid currency would not be refunded. The reason? The operating company, a Tokyo studio called Ambition, is reported to have entered bankruptcy proceedings. And on August 8th, the credit research firm Teikoku Databank reported that mobile game company bankruptcies in Japan had reached 10 in the first 7 months of 2026. That is a record pace. A growing market where companies keep dying. Why? Here are the 3 questions I want to ask. 1. Japan's game market is growing, so why are bankruptcies at a record high? 2. Why did the era end when one hit could make a small studio a fortune? 3. Is this a crisis for Japanese gaming? I will come back to all 3 questions at the end of the video. First, let's look at what actually happened on July 31st. Why was this ending so shocking? Because it skipped the entire ritual. A Japanese live service game normally winds down in stages. The operator announces the end months ahead, stops selling paid currency, refunds what players haven't spent, and only then turns off the servers. The refund step is more than etiquette. Japan's Payment Services Act treats unused prepaid balances as money an issuer must return when it shuts the business down. This time, almost every step was skipped. The title was not retired because it was failing. The company underneath it collapsed, and the whole ritual of ending a game went down with it. 2 shutdowns, 2 different events. The contrast that same month was sharp. In July 2026, the original Shadowverse, a major Japanese card game, also closed after about a decade. But that one wound down in stages, and players could carry their records into a successor title. Unused paid currency was slated for refund. When the operator survives, both the work and the money find their way forward. When the operator itself disappears, neither does. That is a fundamentally different event. Now, what's inside that number 10? Last year, there were 3 bankruptcies in 12 months. This year, 10 in 7. Teikoku Databank expects the full year to pass the previous record of 12 set back in 2015. But there is an important caveat. The count covers not only companies that operate games, but the subcontractors that build them. This is a story measured in low double digits per year, not a parade of famous studios collapsing. Some background. Today's bankruptcies are the cleanup after a boom, the era when one hit meant a fortune. Japanese mobile games are mostly free-to-play, monetized through gacha, randomized draws for characters, named after capsule toy machines. The habit was built in the feature phone era, and then smartphones arrived, and between 2012 and 2013, Puzzle & Dragons and Monster Strike became hits on a completely different scale. A modest team could suddenly generate enormous revenue. That example pulled in a wave of new entrants. The first shakeout came around 2015, when demand moved from browser games to native apps, 12 bankruptcies, a record at the time. Then pandemic-era demand, plus Japan's zero-interest emergency loans for small businesses, kept struggling studios alive for a few more years. And now, in 2026, the second wave has arrived. That is the sequence Teikoku Databank describes. Now here is the twist. While bankruptcies run at a record pace, the market is actually growing. Japan's domestic game market grew 8.0% in 2025 to about 2.6 trillion yen, roughly $16 billion US. Time spent playing per person rose as well, according to the Famitsu Game White Paper, Japan's Standard Industry Yearbook. The market is expanding. Playing time is expanding, and companies are exiting anyway. No general downturn explains that gap. We'll get to what does explain it in the analysis, but first, how Reddit reacted. On r/gacha gaming, the subreddit for gacha games, a thread went up announcing the shutdown. The center of the reaction was shock at how it ended. Announcing the day before shutdown is insane, one user wrote. Management circumstances don't appear overnight. They must have known long before, said another. And then the sharpest observation. This time, it's not the game that got shut down, it's the company. A company itself ending service. Even in gacha circles, you almost never hear that. At the same time, the thread filled with farewell and respect. A niche, small-scale title lasting 8.5 years is genuinely impressive, one user wrote. It was my first gacha game. I won't forget it, said another. And some players turned to action. One post asked for help collecting artwork, voice files, and story recordings, racing to build a preservation archive before the servers go dark. One line captured the mood of the thread. Another gacha game just became a story people tell. The same subreddit runs a separate thread on reading the signs that a gacha game is dying. The biggest sign: new updates stop coming and events become nothing but reruns. Others point to layoffs right after launch and major bugs that never get fixed. Cutting voice language support and no longer caring about translation mistakes also made the list. And in fact, Tales of the Lost had gone completely silent for about 2 months before the end. As one player put it, honestly, we had already braced for the worst. Now for the analysis. Question 1. The market is growing, so why are bankruptcies at a record high? The key is what ship it and it hits really was. Through the early 2010s, smartphone adoption delivered millions of first-time players to the market every year. Ship something decent, and someone with no existing gaming habit would pick it up. So the golden age of easy hits was arguably not a story about design skill. It was a story about a demographic tailwind. And now that smartphones have reached everyone, that tailwind has stopped. Here is the sequence, from recruiting new players to stealing hours. With smartphones saturated, players who have never tried a mobile game barely exist anymore. A new title has to take hours from someone already playing Genshin Impact, Monster Strike, or Fate Grand Order as a daily routine. The research firm Sensor Tower describes exactly this shift. The growth model moved from acquiring new users to deepening spending among existing ones. Japanese survey work has found that more than half of players have abandoned a new mobile game within the first hour. You get 1 hour to earn a place in someone's routine, or there is no next time. And the competition isn't just other games. It's a war for free time that includes video and social media. Supply can grow all at once. The hours available to consume it do not. The second change is the terms of entry. Costs went up, and the odds of success went down. According to Teikoku Databank, 3D graphics and full voice acting have pushed initial development budgets into the hundreds of millions of yen, that is, several $1,000,000, and running costs stay high after launch. Meanwhile, Japan's revenue rankings for late 2025 were dominated by titles 5 years old or more. The only 2025 release said to have broken through in a major way was a new SD Gundam strategy title. And the #1 revenue slot belonged to a game from an overseas publisher. Chinese and Korean publishers, with deep capital and mature pipelines, now enter the Japanese market head-on. The cost of entry rose while the odds of success fell. That is the substance of the second wave. Third, there is a question of trust, the "it will die anyway" loop. Spending on a live service game buys characters, and at the same time, it is an investment in the belief that the game will still exist next year. If an asset you spent years building can vanish tomorrow, the reason to pay collapses. As one-day shutdowns with no refunds accumulate, players start reading an operator's financial health before they spend. Caution weakens new launches. Weak launches get shut down early, and every shutdown deepens the caution. To be clear, this loop is a hypothesis. Nobody has demonstrated it with spending data, but the pressure it describes points in one direction. And cases like Shadowverse, with planned refunds and a successor handoff, push the other way. They protect trust. In an era when forums run threads on spotting a dying game, the integrity of an ending has become a business asset. One more lens. Exit is also redeployment of capital and talent. The emblematic case is Gung Ho. The company that built Japan's smartphone gaming golden age with Puzzle & Dragons reported a 71.1% drop in operating profit and announced a shift toward consoles and PC. The winner of the smartphone era is looking for its next act outside smartphones. Research has found that nearly 6 in 10 of Japan's top-grossing mobile titles already offer a PC version. The category boundary called mobile game is dissolving. From the developer side, money concentrates in a fixed set of big titles, while playing hours disperse toward PC, consoles, and video platforms. Put those together, and this looks less like a crisis of the mobile game industry and more like a crisis for any strategy that stays confined to mobile. Let's close by returning to the 3 questions. 1. The market is growing, so why record bankruptcies? Because what disappeared isn't the market, it's the entry ticket, the conditions under which a small team could win with one hit. The companies exiting are mostly small developers and subcontractors. 2. Why did the jackpot era end? The hits were riding a demographic tailwind, and once smartphones saturated, new games were thrown into a fight for hours against everyone's existing routines. 3. Is this a crisis for Japanese gaming? The market and playing time are both growing, so an industry-wide crisis is hard to argue. The end of easy fortunes reads better as maturity, this industry becoming a normal industry. Though for any strategy that stays mobile only, the crisis is real. Let me end with a loss that appears in no statistic. When Tales of the Lost ended, what vanished was the scenario written for this game, the voice work recorded for it, and 8 years of accumulated play. With the company gone, there is no mechanism left to run them again. Most games today are live services, built to run on servers, updated continuously. Unlike a box game, when the operator stops, the way to play disappears with it. Where does a work live after the company leaves? Live service has become the default shape of this medium, and nobody has answered that question yet. The full article covers the bankruptcy data in more detail, along with the complete Reddit threads. You'll find the link in the description. Thanks for watching.